Welcome back to the Woodworking Talk Show, the internet's most popular podcast with the most generic name about people who make things, and sometimes it's even about woodworking. Before we get started, I wanted to, hey, Neil, I should probably ask you this question. What do you think about, you think I should revisit the name of this podcast, or you think I should just own it? Just the Woodworking Talk Show.
I like it. I like it because it can straddle both fences, meaning you can be more woodworky, or you can be more talk showy, right?
Yeah. See,
because there's
it's just kind of you. Yeah, it tells you what you're going to get.
Baseball podcasts that are like deep into the minutia of woodworking stuff,
right?
And as much as I try to listen to those, they're talking about miter bits and like metric.
What was on your table this week?
I'm lost.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wouldn't be welcome on it if you had called it something fancier.
There's nothing fancy about this dog and pony show. So, before we get started, I wanted to remind you that if you are looking for an outlet for your creativity, or maybe you want help exploring your creativity with something new, or maybe you're just woodworking curious, there is no better hobby than woodworking. And if you're thinking it's probably just too hard or too expensive, or you don't have enough space, think again. I have a step-by-step approach to getting started called The Weekend Woodworker, where you'll build your first actual factual project this weekend. No experience necessary. Head over to weekendwoodworkercourse.com and check it out. This week on the podcast, I wanted to mix things up a bit and talk to someone who is a member of the Weekend Woodworker, but more importantly, a super creative individual. I've always been fascinated by the nature of creativity and how we can bring it into woodworking, metalworking, performing, cooking, gardening, or anything else that we create. And maybe better understand and overcome what kinds of things hold us back. Neil Patrick Harris has a long resume going back several decades in the entertainment industry, but listeners of this podcast will probably best know him from his role as Patrick Winslow in the Smurfs movie, of course. Nobody's going to know that. Do your kids have a favorite role of yours, or is that something they even pay any attention to?
Our daughter Harper's been watching Doogie Howser, MD, early episodes. I'm not sure if it's because she really likes it or it's because she thinks it's mock worthy, because they're 11. So I think she's trying to find any motivation she can to openly mock me. So,
well, for what it's worth, my grandmother in the 90s, that was her favorite show. I mean, she just loved Doogie Howser, MD. I don't know what it was, but she sure talked about it a lot.
It was a good show.
In the past couple years, Neil's gotten into woodworking, so I thought it would be fun to talk to him about his experience thus far and how and if he's able to juggle this hobby with his career and family. Hey, Neil, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am a fan, and this is very exciting for me. I did, as you said, I signed up for the Weekend Woodworking course. And mainly because you touted so often and so well this idea that you don't need a ton of scratch in order to have the tools that you need. And so I found that enticing enough to buy said tools. We're actually talking on a day where I was literally in the garage that I'm turning into a woodworking studio. And I just put the top onto the big bench. I bought an additional 1 3/4 top. It was like 12, 15, 18 feet long. And I had to, I bought two different pieces, and I had to cut one to size. And I hadn't used the table saw in half a year. So I had to turn that on and measure and cut, and I did pretty good, I think. But you were like both the angel and devil on my shoulder, because I find all of this relatively intuitive and yet ripe for mistakes. Like everyone that I talk to says it's not there's more than one way to do it. It's not rocket science, it's relatively simple. And that's kind of what I like about it, is working with natural materials and figuring out how they work. At the same time, there's hundreds, it seems, of little tips. My sweet heavens, you do them more than anyone. Here's 5 tips about using wood glue. Here's 11 tips about how to prepare your table saw before you cut. And so
that you don't die.
I'm terrified to turn the effing thing on, because I feel like I'm going to have forgotten tips 4 through 9. And so this is weirdly, I think, my larger journey in life, which is rectifying, the idea of mistakes and learning through doing, as opposed to wanting to do it well the first time.
Well, that's the thing. And it's easy to get overwhelmed online with all of the information. There's a lot of noise, and especially on YouTube, there's so many people just competing for attention and eyeballs. And it's, everybody's coming up with their 7 things you need to do on a table saw, or else, you're going to die, or something like that. So you got to come up with all of these things, and they're all valid tips, but it can get really overwhelming. And I think that most of woodworking is very intuitive. And if you just kind of think it through and if you have a basic understanding of the safety things you need to know, you'll figure it out.
Sort of, but I don't have one of those yellow plastic things that you push through.
The gripper.
Yeah.
You got to get one.
I know, but here I am today panicking because I don't have a ripper.
You can use a push stick.
I didn't have a push stick, Steve. I was using my hands, and I could feel everyone in my mind.
Don't do that. Don't.
What's a push stick? I didn't have a stick with a little notch out of it. How do I make the notch? What am I supposed to take a drill bit and core out the end of a piece of wood and then use that as my push stick? Or I can't use the table saw to make a push stick. Why do I sound like Regis Philbin right now? Sorry.
Well, you could just use any old stick. It doesn't have to be a notch or anything.
Oh, okay.
Just use
See, this is where I am right now.
See, just is there anything that was more unexpected when you first started woodworking? Was there an expectation versus reality kind of thing, other than being overwhelmed?
Well, I come at it from a different point, because I don't mind paying additional monies for something that I'm going to have for the long term. What I didn't want to do is buy a bunch of tools that then in 2 years' time I would be told, oh, you really need to upgrade to this. I'd rather just buy the upgraded one and then work from the beginning. So that's been a little tricky, is figuring out, do you go Makita, or do you go Ryobi, or do you go, Milwaukee? And everyone sort of says it doesn't really matter, with few exceptions. You just pick one for the batteries, which is valid. And so I think I have.
I don't even think that battery. I don't think that battery argument really holds that much water. I mean, that's not that hard to find the right battery and put it in there. It's not they're all different colors and everything. I guess if people like to have all the same brand, but that's usually the thing they say is, because of the batteries. But I don't know.
Yeah, so I sort of have all of them at the moment. I have some Makita, some Milwaukee, some DeWalt. I just got this thing, Ego. You heard of this company? They make this giant snow machine thing that they sent me, because I saw an Instagram post and I thought it looked so amazing, because we have a place in East Hampton, New York, upstate, and it's called Funhouse Farm. We have 15 acres. It's a big property. And when it snows, there's a lot of snow. And so I saw this video of someone with this, I don't know what it's like, a big snow, that you push it like a
snowblower.
Like a snowblower, I guess, but it's big, and it shoots it all sideways. Is that just what a snowblower does? And I don't know.
I live in California. I don't have a snowblower. I don't know.
So you must be even more excited by these videos than I am. I thought it, I couldn't believe it. So they wound up sending me one right after it had snowed. So it didn't arrive because there was a blizzard. And so finally, when it did arrive, it had stopped snowing. It hasn't snowed since. So I'm really excited, because it's battery powered, and you just shove these giant batteries in there, and then you can blow your lawn. So I'm praying for snow this spring. and that hasn't happened. But no, I'm honestly, I have this garage at the funhouse. It had big giant planks of wood on the floor, and it's a big empty two-car garage, A-frame kind of space. And I thought we park our cars near the house, so this is a perfect spot to actually build stuff. I've always had a place in my house, home, apartment, wherever we lived, that was like my little work area with my bench where I could fix things. I love fixing things. I'm real good with super glues and taking things that have been broken and putting them together. I recently bought an old typewriter that arrived from Prague, and it's dope, except it didn't advance. It worked, but every time you pushed the key, it didn't advance to the next key. So I just sort of figured it out. I just sort of looked at it and tried to figure out, like magic and automatons, you can see how the wire attaches to the thing that works to the next button. And so I figured it out and I fixed it. I was really proud of myself. So that all I have going for me. But then I wanted to make this a woodworking place, and I said, well, first I have to replace the floors, because you don't want big giant wood planks because you're not level. And if you want to move things around and have, like you do, and be able to saw outside maybe. So then that was an exhausting re-cementing and leveling and adding. We tried to do, what's it called? The shiny topped floor.
Oh, the epoxy floors?
Epoxy. Oh, that was a near disaster. A team.
Oh, you tried to do that yourself, huh?
I didn't. I hired a team that said they knew how to do it, and then they absolutely did not know how to do it at all. And so 4 tries later, it finally kind of worked out. Cut to today. Steve.
What are you doing hiring? Like, I know a guy. He'll come over and do this for
Well,
me.
here's the thing. If you live in the Hamptons, and you have a place that's called, like, circus themed, called the Funhouse, people see dollar signs, dude. And I know for a fact that an epoxy floor shouldn't cost a ton of money. So I don't want to just like hire an epoxy floor team. I want to hire like a reasonably priced team to come and do it. I screwed up. It was a disaster. Anyway, the floor's done. It looks great. It took too long, but it's great. Now I have an actual workbench now. I have my table saw that's a little bit rusty. We could talk about that later, but it still is now working. Although when I when I took the top, like I had a blanket on top of it, when I took the blanket off, there was some sort of metal hook-like device. There was 2 of them, and I think they're supposed to attach onto the top of the blade. It looks.
You mean like a riving knife?
Maybe it was just.
I'm
sitting.
like the I preach riving knife. That's like what.
It was just sitting on the top near the blade.
Okay, so a riving knife will be like this curved piece of metal that goes right behind the blade, keeps your wood from kicking back at you.
So I have that, a single riving knife behind the blade. This is a double one of those that had like teeth. It was equally curved. What is that?
It's a anti-kickback prawl, I think it's called.
Where does that go?
So that also goes behind the blade, and those teeth prevent the wood from going. It keeps the wood only going one direction, so that if it does kick back, those little teeth grab it and prevent it from kicking back.
Okay, I didn't use it, and I was panicking.
It'd probably be all right. The riving knife is the most important. Just use the riving knife.
Okay, I did
It'll
that.
be fine.
Dude, I think I'm not joking. I think I'm a couple weekends away. We're taking a trip for spring break with the kids. And then when I'm back, I think I'm like ready to actually make the first thing in the Weekend Warriors
that's great.
thing, which is, I think, a shelving unit, right?
The first thing is it's an end table.
Which is perfect, because I need this to...
California casual end table.
Wait, an end table?
Yeah.
No. I need you to teach me how to make things for the wood workshop.
Well, no, you probably got you got the weekend workshop course.
Yeah, dude.
I got multiple courses here. Yeah, I think you got both courses though, don't you? Probably. But the weekend workshop. You've got
to build.
So you got to start with a workbench. Sounds like you've already got that. And you were asking me the other day about a vise. And it's good to have a vise. It's not absolutely necessary unless, that's mostly for hand tool work. If you were going to be doing a lot of planing and hand saw, you need something to really support.
I wanted your advice on a vise. Dad joke.
I know. Yeah.
And
One of
you
the
get-
most misspelled words ever, spelled with an S. Just a little fun fact there.
Interesting. Yeah. But I need everything to start to be portable now. I need to now figure out dust
Dust collection.
dust collection. I just watched one of your videos on dust collection, which was cool. I think. Did you just post one?
I would say don't get too overwhelmed with getting everything set up perfectly to start with. You know, if you just start making stuff, you'll be fine. All of this stuff it's a slow progression over time. In fact, I think that's a better way to build a shop rather than try, because it's hard to know exactly what you want right from the start. But if you have a few basic organizational storage units and you got a workbench, you're pretty much good to start working. And then you're going to realize that there's things, I sure wish I had this. And then you can go and
I really want a
buy
belt
that
sander.
and make some.
And everyone says you don't
Belt
need a belt
sander?
sander. I want to make puppets, Steve. I have a 3D printer and I have a laser printer now, the Glowforge thing.
I know you got the Glowforge. That's cool.
You have
See,
one
I
of
want to
those?
ask you about that. No, I've been thinking about getting one, not for the show, but for myself.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Legitimately fantastic.
I saw that you were doing. I saw you on one of the late night shows. I don't remember which one, but it might have been Kimmel. But you were talking about giving Christmas gifts as Glowforge. So what did you do? Did you just like cut out little pieces with
I took a single
engravings on
piece
them?
of the Glowforge. What was it? I think we used a dark walnut, a hard walnut sheet, and I made essentially it was a spinner, like a small carnival spinner in Funhouse Farmway, and it cut out everything, including the little piece that bends, that goes clackety 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 clack. That's the pointer,
right,
And it's
right.
made out of one piece of wood that it laser cuts like a horizontal line to the right, and then offset to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, very small, and that's what allows it to bend. So no gluing parts necessary. And then on each of the little pie pieces of the circle that you spun, I added sort of a magic 8-ball answer. So one said yes, or try again, absolutely not, no way. And so then I put all the pieces in an envelope, in a plastic bag, and added a QR code onto the bag. And then when the people scanned the QR code, it was a video of Gideon, my son, and I explaining how to put it together. And then you have like your own thing. So made 80 of those.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's how you do Christmas gifts, right
For
there.
sure. Well, I'm not joking. That was
QR codes.
that was the impetus for the whole thing. Was sort of I wanted to make something. I wanted to give a gift that you could make with your hands.
Yeah.
That also, like,
that you made also.
kind of, yeah. That was indicative of where I am in my life right now.
What does your husband and kids think about this whole woodworking thing?
I think they'll think it much cooler when I'm actually making things.
Yeah.
Because I feel, like I said, I'm feeling still that I need to have organization for everything. Like, I think everything needs to have its place. For instance, after this podcast, I'm going to go back to the garage. And I bought a bunch of pegboard, but I bought the metal pegboards, and I put them up above this giant workbench that I have. Listen, I wanted to do French cleats. It was all about the French cleat. But you have to cut
Oh,
those.
you're gonna regret it.
French cleats are so cool, but then you have to make all these little boxes. I haven't made a single box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So then I think, okay, well, I need to at least learn how to make boxes.
You
Box
see, that's your first project right there. You make a little box.
there.
I mean, once you get like your basic workshop stuff.
So
done.
here we
you
go.
build some
So
shelves
let's
to
talk
hold
about
stuff.
this.
You build.
So make your first
Yeah.
box. So do you think that I should get a pneumatic nail gun so that I can just glue and make a little pop, 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 pop? It's so satisfying to watch people do that.
Well, it is, but it's not necessary. In fact, then you got the nail holes. Just glue it. Glue the thing. I
But
glue
then,
everything.
okay, so I need
hardly
to
ever
glue the
use
thing. So then do I
nails.
have to buy those little corner those 90-degree clamps that hold it together in the
No.
90-degree angle?
As long as you have regular clamps. I have a video on how to make your first box, a basic box, because I think that is the most fundamental. Every project you make is going to be kind of based on a box. It's either going to be a version of a box or a version of a table.
I know.
And that's pretty much it. If you can make a box, you can pretty much build anything.
Yes, but
And I
Steve,
have a real basic version.
here's the problem for the novice. Is there's another video right after the video of how to make the basic box, which is like how to make a better box.
Start with
So I don't
basic.
know that I
Start with
want to
my
waste my
video.
time making the
See,
basic bitch box when I
no,
could
you do.
make ones that like hold together better. Do you know? Or like
No, it'll
have
hold together.
dovetails.
Basic box will hold together. Well, see, people get into that. They think that that's like the sign of I am a true woodworker because I can make dovetails. But that's a different philosophy, I guess, on woodworking. There's various philosophies. Is whether the act of making something is what inspires you and what you enjoy doing, or if it's the end product and you really want to see this thing done. And so usually most people lie somewhere in that spectrum. I'm kind of myself who I just pretty much at this point in my career just enjoy the process. I love coming out to the shop. I love just building things. Whereas I'm not as interested in like, I need a coffee table. So damn it, I'm going to build me a coffee table, you know? So you have to kind of feel that out. It takes time.
I
It
think
just takes like
I think I'm
reps.
right in the middle. Like
Yeah.
I still want to make shelves to hold spray paint cans and paint
Right.
cans, right? And then I know that there's a
See, I think that the
thing for
shop
that.
projects like that, they're so low risk, you know, because nobody's really seeing them. It's for you. So you can like experiment and do all these things.
Okay.
It's not like you're going to be building an armoire and you're going to be giving it to somebody for a gift as your
Right.
first project or
Right.
something. You know.
And then I'll take pride in the fact that I made it, and through the act of making it, we'll learn, like, have a hit list of things that I want to improve upon the next time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right.
Why woodworking? What got you in, what was the first spark in your mind of like, you know, I want to do woodworking?
I grew up in a small town in New Mexico called Ruidoso, about 3.5 hours south of Albuquerque, a ski resort town in South Central Mountains. And I come from parents who were both attorneys, general civil law practice, and my dad would often exchange legal services for a piece of furniture that came from someone's barn that needed some work. And I remember being really young and and walking around trying to find my dad and finding him, you know, outside or downstairs under the house or something with a mask on, and he was staining or cleaning up or taking a toothbrush to a big great piece of antique furniture and refurbishing it and taking just sort of great pride in it. At the time, I wasn't that impressed by it. It just seemed like a waste of time. It just seemed like a lot of time. But now I think I appreciate what it was that he was doing. I think having some pride in really looking at things for what they are is a valuable skill. As a parent, it's something that I've been actively preaching. Is it, you know, if something breaks, it doesn't mean you throw it away and just buy a new one as if it's just entirely disposable. It's broken, so look at it. Like, what broke? Why did it break? What caused it to break? Was it a force issue? Was it a malfunction? What's it made of? How would you adhere it back together? Like, could you screw it back together? And what would that process? So the process of it all, I sort of found fascinating. I also am a magician, right? And so I've been buying at auction a lot of antique magic props, and some of them are broken. And antique magic props can be really old, 1920s, 1860, and the mechanisms on them sometimes need to be adjusted, but they're old school mechanisms and they still are effective. But you have to sort of figure out, wait a minute, how does this, oh, this is probably just rusted. And if I just clean this up and rebend this, hence the vise, and, you know, like add a little piece of wood here, hence the band saw, then I can improve
Yeah, I
it.
see.
And matter of fact,
Yeah.
here's a fun story. I bought this cool thing that's a vending machine. It's long, metal. It probably is 36 inches tall by 12 inches wide, and it held packs of Wrigley's spearmint gum. It was probably put in bathrooms of gas stations or between gas things. It was one of those kind of vibes. And it was for 5 cents. You put a nickel in, you can see all the little stacks of Wrigley's spearmint gum. You turn the knob in the middle, out comes the gum. It came with 6 or 7 packets of very aged gum. And so great. So I bought it. We put it. I hung it just a couple days ago, and I put in a whole bunch of packs of new Wrigley's spearmint gum, and tried it. Put in the nickel. Turned the thing. Turned it again. Out popped 2 Wrigley's spearmint gum packs. Well, that's odd. Maybe that was just a fluke. So I put in another nickel. Turned the thing. Turned it back. 2 more pop out. So I think, okay. Also, by the way, Steve, I love escape rooms and sort of solving puzzles. So I think, why is it spitting out 2 packs of gum? So I look at the current pack of gum, and I look at the aged antique pack of gum, and sure enough, Wrigley's has reduced its size of its gum pack by not a lot,
No.
but by a little bit, right? So I think, well, now what am I supposed to do? I want this to be practical. So I took it, I opened it up, and I'm staring at it, and I figured out what the metal mechanism is. The first half of the crank takes a piece of metal that's on the outside of what the little ledge where the next gum would be, and it's pulling back. And when you turn the crank the other way, it's shooting it forward. So I thought, and I could see how high it was. And I said, oh, okay, well, what if I just adjusted, and I went and got some felt pads that normally are for underneath chairs to keep them from sliding. I cut them to size. I used like long tweezers, and I put one on each side of this metal thing to justify the difference in height. I patted it all down. I put it back on together, and it worked. It now spits out 1 pack of Wrigley's spearmint gum. So for me, that is why I got interested in the whole thing. I sort of liked teaching myself how to fix something that's broken or improve something that needs fixing. And so then once I started doing that on a small scale, I still knew nothing about big saws, table saws, jigsaws, any of them. I have them. I just don't know how to use them, and I know how to use them. I just didn't know in what context to use them or how to use them efficiently or safely. And then, so I started learning about how the tools worked. And at a certain point I thought, well, now you're just a poser, dude. You've made nothing. You're increasing your knowledge, but you're not building anything of substance. I also was living in an apartment in Harlem where you couldn't really buy a sheet of plywood and then break it down. There was nowhere to do that. Now that we have the funhouse, like that's actively what I want to do. This is
That's cool.
admire Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
Pray to the at the altar of the Offerman God,
Right. Yeah.
and
There's
start
some high-end
appreciating how
woodworking there.
wood works. Woodworking,
Right.
I don't want to just. I do want to just build stuff and say
Yeah.
that I've built a table that moves around and holds all of my wood pieces and stuff like that, because I need that. But at the same time, I want to learn the difference between the types of woods and appreciate how wood ebbs and flows and expands and contracts, and learn to appreciate what I'm doing in addition to just learning how to do it.
Well, it's a lifelong pursuit. It never, it's one of these things that you'll never like, oh, there, I've learned it all. That's it. It'll be continual. And I think that's one of the fun things about woodworking is that it's always challenging. Every single project has its own set of challenges. Every project is different. It's as much of a mental game as anything else.
Dude,
I think it's interesting
agree
that
with you more.
I think it's interesting that you were learning so much by taking the vending machine apart. And I think there's just so much value in disassembling things. And I had one of my very first jobs was working for, I don't know if you remember Man Theaters. It used to be a chain of movie theaters. And so this was in Denver. and I did maintenance work for them. I was like 18 years old, and I didn't know anything about this stuff. So I got like thrown into the fire. Like, okay, you need to head over to this theater because the soda machine isn't working, or the popcorn machine isn't working. And so it was just a matter of like taking the stuff apart, figuring it out, and fixing it. And it was really cool. I think there's so much value in that, definitely.
The sad part is
You
that
know,
I collect a lot of weird pieces of foam of different densities, lots of cardboards. I'm like hoarding little receptacles and things that I might need. And sure enough, I use them. I'll go, oh,
oh,
I have a
see.
perfect little thing that can, I think, fix that thing.
Do you think that there's how would you define the difference between an art and a craft? I mean, I guess this is an age-old question, but and I guess coming from your perspective, say from a theater, you think of there being like theater craft, and yet there's artists there too.
Hmm.
And I think of woodworking in the craft of woodworking, but I know I've had people on this show who I just consider artists above all else, and I'm not really sure what it is.
That's a really good question. I would think my first instinct would be to say that it would be wanting to have a singular focus. I think would help focus the art on it. I'm more of a jack of all trades, master of few. So I want to learn how something's done and then great, and then use it. But also I'm interested in learning how other things are done. And I think real craftspeople and real artists really love a singular kind of thing and can really gel on that. There's also just different perspectives. I look at someone like Banksy, contemporary artist, who, aside from the spray painting stuff, which is stencils and unbelievable, he can take found objects and add to them in such a smart way that I don't know if that's just an innate way of existing, of looking at things from your own perspective, having your own confidence in your own abilities, and doing what you think is right. You know, I should probably heed my own advice in that way. I'm
Do you
hearing
think that
myself say that, and I'm feeling like, wow, I'm sitting here talking to you about not making anything, but I should probably just take some pride in the box that I want to make and start becoming
Yeah.
an artist as opposed to just trying to do it right.
Do you see that your creative side has evolved now that you're approaching 50, aren't you?
Yeah,
You
48.
okay, so you're like 6 years younger than me. So that do you find that your creative side has evolved and is much different than when you look back on things you were doing when you were 20? And
Oh,
what is that?
100%. I mean, at 48, I've never been in better shape in my life. I've never felt more secure in my body. I've never felt better, honestly. So I think in my 20s and 30s, I was still seeking approval more. I wanted to make something to show someone, to have them tell me that I'm valid or good or wow, that's amazing. And some of that was probably just being an actor. By design, actors, need casting directors to hire them so they get the job. They need the director to tell them that was the perfect take. They need producers to say, we want to hire you again. They need an audience to say, we loved his character. They need the outside approval that comes with the gig. It's not singular, but it's far different from being an architect, where you make your plans, you submit them. If you don't get the job, you didn't get it, and you have it to show later. But no, I don't know. Also being a parent, I think, is a real changer of the
Right.
game all in.
And you have to be creative as a parent, don't you? You have to always be coming up with interesting ways to. For me, if I have one son, and it always felt sort of like you're trying to mold this person in a way that allows them to be their own person. And it could be difficult especially if you're somebody who is really into like controlling. It's like I need this to be this way, but you have to kind of set back a little bit, don't you?
For sure. But I think these skills that you teach are really good life skills to learn, whether they be how to build and create, or whether they be how to adjust, or take ownership of. But I'm all about reusing things. Okay, this has been broken and now it's this. Well, we could take this and add this to it and now it becomes this. You don't have to give your child a basketball and then show them that it has to go inside a hoop. For them, the basketball could be spun on their finger. It could be floating in the water. It could be a spaceship flying in the air. And so everything has multiple potentials. And that's what's fun that's what's fun about creating, I think.
What do you do when you have like creative slumps? Because I've had many of those over the years. How do you get past that?
That's a really interesting question. Again, our our job our job definitions are a little bit different, because I feel like you have a slump. This is my mind read, that you have a slump because you're struggling with creating new things, right? That you're
Right.
coming up with on your own, like what new videos or what
Oh,
new
yeah.
projects or what new, but they're all stemming from you. The actor's often in a creative slump because no one's hiring them.
Oh,
it's
right.
you don't get to create your own work necessarily, because that's what producers.
Oh, but you do. You know what? I wanted to mention this to you. I found really interesting was you were in quarantine last year and you had an Instagram series where, guys, you were like 14 days, right? You were
Yep.
in a hotel room.
In Toronto, yeah.
And yeah, and so you posted like these little movies on Instagram. It
Yeah.
was really cool. It was like a magic one on there. And
Yeah,
it was,
for sure.
It's very
I
creative
did a very
stuff.
strange
So
thing. It was
you
not a
get
good call, Steve. I thought it would be funny to do 14 days of videos in quarantine, and halfway through
it was just your slow descent into madness.
into madness.
Into those-
But halfway through, I decided on day 7 to recreate what I did on day 1. And then on day 8, recreate what I did on day 2. But each one is now very twisted and different. Problem is, on Instagram, no one goes back to what you did on day 1. They're just seeing the escalator of information. So people
Right.
thought I was absolutely bonkers because they didn't realize that it was because of that. No, listen, I love that. And it's a great time to be alive, because anyone can create content on social media with
Yeah.
TikTokery and Instagrammery. And I think that's fun. It's a bit of a time suck. I think my issues are more of bandwidth. I get a little overwhelmed because I'm running out of just time, because I want to spend time with my family. I want to have meals with them. I want to build stuff. That takes time. And then I want to write. I have to edit this Wondercade newsletter that I'm doing, which takes time. And then when you're acting or reading a book, everything just takes time. If I had a magical
Right.
superpower, I'd be able to stop time and just hang out and do stuff, and then start time again and not age, and not have aged within that time period.
It is the greatest commodity there is time. It's everything, especially as I get older. I definitely notice that everything revolves around how much time can you spend on something,
Yeah.
how do you allocate the time. And I think a lot of people, especially younger people, it's easy for them to just kind of knee-jerk say, I don't have time to do that, where they really do. It's just they're not allocating things for what they think. They're not prioritizing to what they really find important, what they really want to get out of life. But
And why is
again,
it,
this may be
why
just
is it
something that
that as we get older, time rips by faster? Is that just we have an influx of experiences and they overlap each other? I'm seriously asking the question. It boggles my mind. Today
well,
it was like working
one of
out.
the
I was like,
theories
oh my
I-
gosh, how am I working out? And it's already 4:00, and I'm about to do a podcast. It's going to be 5:15, and then it's going to be dinner. What happened to this day? I just began this day.
So I've heard two theories on this, and one of them is that time goes faster as you age because each year is a smaller percentage of your life. So like when you're 10 years old, half of your life is 5 years.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other one is that our experiences are less relevant as you get older. When you're younger, almost everything you do is a memorable experience. It's something that's the first time I rode a roller coaster. It was the first time I did this. And all these things are brand new experiences and it's our experiences that kind of help us through the course of time. And as we get older, it's just like so much of it is just kind of churning out day after day, I
That's
guess.
true. I don't value mundane experiences as anything but kind of
Right.
fine, innocuous. Like, not mundane as if I roll my eyes and have to do it, but I don't put a lot of energy into it, and maybe that makes it rip by faster. I've
And you
been
probably find that those new experiences are the ones that you have with your kids because it's
True
new
that.
to them.
True that. And I retain conversations that we have and meals that we have when they're providing new insights for me in a way I hadn't thought about it. That makes perfect sense. I'm very into escape room boxes. Do you know these? Like there's a company called the
Yeah,
Mysterious Package Company,
sure.
and
Yeah.
that send you ephemera of letters and things, and you have to put together the story. I'm loving them because I feel like it's woodworking adjacent a little bit because I know that some modern team has tea stained letters and hand typed them and ripped them and created newspaper articles and actual newspaper and then aged them and sent lockets and put them together in a box that they built and then put like stamps on the sides of the boxes. So I when I'm in a creative slump, to answer your earlier question, I think I refer to those for inspiration because I can appreciate that there's a new narrative that I can learn about, and I can also simultaneously appreciate the people that spent time putting it together.
And magic always fascinates me too. And my early in my channel, well, throughout the history of 14 years on my YouTube channel, I've made a number of magic tricks, and especially when my son was little, because he was really I think every kid, maybe it's just me, every kid seems to want to go through this magic period where they
Yeah,
want
you
to do
just did a
magic. But
floating cane, I saw.
yeah, and there's a name I forget what the actual name for that trick is, but you
Dancing
probably
cane.
know what it is. But I don't know. Is that what it is?
The
It's
dancing
dancing
cane,
cane.
yeah.
Okay, so it's so cool. I just love that thing. It's just so weird and it just looks cool. But I find that the magic tricks that I had made were like there's such a brilliant simplicity to them, in that like they say smoke and mirrors, but there really is mirrors. And I made a box that had the 45-degree mirror in there, and it had
Nice.
stripes on it, so you could drop something in there.
Great, the mirror
And it's
box.
just so cool because
Nice.
when you see it, just looks so amazing when you see it in action. And by seeing that, by learning how to make some of those things, now I'm like, I watch magic shows. I'm like, I wonder if that's kind of how they're doing that.
Magic is such a great hobby because you can really delve into the histories of specific types of magic. I've always loved stage magic and the big where does the assistant hide? How does it look like they're getting cut in thirds when you can see beneath it? And the magic principles are really deeply rooted in construction of boxes and
Yep.
seeming
Make a box.
yes, not depth perception, but the idea that you think you're looking at something that's thinner than it really is.
Oh, right. Right. Forced
Forced
perspective.
perspective is,
Like Disneyland.
yeah, for sure, and used in magic a ton, and a really fun thing to play with when you're building stuff. But also with magic, I think by design, people that are observing magic, for the most part, they don't think magic is actually happening, but they're actively willing to suspend some disbelief. Yes, you have your people that only watch magic because they want to learn how it's done, and they're mad if they can't, and they feel like you're making them look like a fool. That's a type of person that watches magic, not my favorite. But most people really like watching magic and really
We love being fooled.
don't care about what the method is. They just love that the card turned into another card, or that those chalkboard slates, when put together and shaken and opened up again, now have ghostly writing on them. I mean, it's pretty easy to figure out how something like that could be done, but that's not the point, right? The point is that you're doing something for someone, and that there's a story and a narrative, and they enjoy it, and you move on from it. So I think you're given a bit of an out creatively that is that's
And
helpful.
it's a there's a craft to it. Penn Jillette talked about that before on how he's not a fan of these people who call themselves illusionists and try to get you to believe that what they're doing is real magic. He's like, no, we spend a lot of time working on this craft. It's a trick we're doing, and we love fooling you on that.
100%. But I, as much as I love the cardistry and love, coin palms and things, I have a soft spot for like a wooden gimmick. Like I love to think that back in the early 1900s, Thurston the Great was doing big shows for audiences filled with well-dressed people who had never seen these things before. And he was using strings to pull cables. There was no technology of any real sort, He was nudging his hip against the side of a table, and that by nudging it, it dislodged a thing which caused a spring to turn, which caused a flap to drop. I mean, it's very Rube Goldbergian, and I think that's something so great about that. Yes, it's simple, but it's also quite complicated and wonderful.
Well, you got to start your own YouTube channel now. You're the Magic Channel.
Oh, bandwidth. Ramsey, bandwidth.
You need more. You need more stuff. You don't have enough going on over on Instagram either.
I wanted to do a podcast. I had a great idea for a podcast, but it's bandwidth.
Really? What is it?
Well, I want to do a Wondercade podcast. That'll probably happen because I like to talk about things that I think are cool.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do a podcast with my kids called Kidsplanation, where the whole episode is them explaining to dumb, dunderhead adults and parents what kids actually know and are talking about, like dabbing or K-pop or like Dua Lipa. You know what I mean?
You're getting old, man.
You know what these are, but I'm using them as examples because our kids will say like vernacular words and I don't even know what they're talking about. And I thought, that'd be a fun podcast. Is that it was supposed to be This American Life, except it would be the kids making the parents, like teaching them and also kind of taking the piss out of them at the same time. Kidsplanation, great idea, great title. Hey, so, no one can buy it because I already bought it. But when am I going to do that, Steve?
See, that's what I do is I buy domain names because I have an idea I want to do something, and I'm like, oh, I better snatch that up before somebody else gets it. And then I've got like 100 domain names that I own.
How many do you have? How many domain names?
How many domain names? I probably have, realistically, probably over 50.
And are these 50 domain names that you think you are going to actually use, or just you thought someone will come up with this idea and I'm going to buy the domain name so that when they do, I can charge them?
Okay, so I got one just recently. I got one because I do this other podcast with a friend of mine, and we talk to YouTubers, and we started bringing YouTubers in, and we had this thing where we had a YouTube roundtable with people just talking about inside baseball, YouTube-y stuff. And I thought, this would be a cool thing. Maybe we could have its own thing, would be YouTube Roundtable. I'm like, I better get that idea before somebody else does because we talked about it on the show. And as soon as I mention something, then somebody else is going, ooh, the Weekend Woodworker, is that available? So we have like the Weekend Woodworker. Nice. We have all the iterations of that. Sure. And then, so yeah. Tell me about this Wondercade business you got going on. So you just started this email newsletter. I just signed up for it, by the way, and today I got a copy of the first issue.
Nice.
That got sent out.
It was essentially.
How did this come about?
It was pitched to me as an idea to make a big, business move in the same sort of model of Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. Where it started off as a subscription-based weekly newsletter of things that she liked. Hers was more, health, spirituality based, like personal improvement, and the idea from mine it would be more like gentleman based, or expanding even more so entertainment based. Like I've done. At 48, I started working when I was 13 years old, right? So I've been doing this for a while. And through that, I have seen and experienced a lot. And as we just have talked about, I have a bit of a voracious appetite for experiencing new things. I really want my bucket list to be not only large, but made by myself in my woodworking studio. And so I just like all kinds of things. I love circus and magic and VR, and my husband's a chef as well as an actor, so we know the food and beverage scene. We love design. We travel around a lot. We just gotten to do a lot of fun stuff. So rather than talk and brag about it or go on Instagram and say, look what I got to do, I thought, why don't we start this? It's like Goop, but less viscous. And it's a weekly thing right now. You subscribe, wondercade.com. There's no agenda to it. It's not like we're going to then try and sell you other stuff. And it's just usually 4 or 5, it's basically 2 or 3 stories of things that I find interesting. They'll either be themed. I think we have coming up is this spring,
It's an extensive newsletter.
stuff.
I was impressed on
Yeah.
how much material is in this thing.
Then there'll be an
There's,
emporium where you can buy things that are adjacent to what we've been talking about. And I think once that grows, which it's doing really well and expanding and people are liking it, looking forward to it, which is nice, then I think we're going to expand into a web presence so we can have more in-depth stories, kind of what we're doing right now.
and then the YouTube
Has to
channel.
be brief. Well, and then probably the podcast.
Oh yeah.
And then I start thinking, what Pandora's box did I just build? See how I keep trying to use building references on your show? It's a talk show. So it's a woodworking talk show.
It's the woodworking talk show.
So I'm building a box of Pandora that I worry once Wondercade begins, then it won't stop, because I have other stuff that I like to do, like acting and directing and being a person and a dad and like a normal guy. So I don't want it to overtake my life, Wondercade. But at the same
Do you think a lot
time,
of
I
this
don't know.
came about?
Like, I
Did
love.
it come about because of COVID and everything, and just like
No,
having so much
honestly, it
time?
came about from a lot of the hosting stuff that I've done. My idols are Jim Henson and Walter Elias Disney and P.T. Barnum in a way, Kermit the Frog. I enjoy showing other people cool things. I'm good at explaining the rules of a game on game night. I like to be efficient and effective and encourage good times. And so immersive theater, love it. Some people don't know much about it. I know a ton about it. And if you want to go have a fun, different experience, I'd happy to tell you 3 different places you can do that. Same with VR, headsets, the what's it called now? It's not Oculus anymore. The Meta.
Oh, right.
The Meta
Yeah.
Quest, Meta Quest 2 is fantastic. I don't know if you have one. It's
No,
literally
I've seen you playing around with it.
fantastic. Not for literally whatever you want. See it. They have
So I saw that
CNN
there's
VR.
one coming out. There's one coming out, and so I started rock climbing. This is like a thing I do now.
There's one
And
called The Climb.
I saw there's one. Do you know? Have you seen Alex Honnold? You know this guy? He's the free solo climbed
yeah,
up El
yeah, yeah.
Capitan. So he's got a VR first-person climbing thing now you can do. I'm like, oh man, that alone makes me want to buy a VR headset.
Well, one of the early VR headset games was called The Climb. And you have your 2 hands and you can look up and around and you can start climbing. And as you your hand hits a grip, you have a little circle that starts you only have so much strength within that hand. So you have to quickly get to the other hand
nice.
and sort of traverse the cliff. But while you're there, you can like stop and look around and you can climb really impressive places. Beyond climbing, you can paint in VR, you can watch news stories in VR, you can watch theater pieces in VR. Like, I think all of that is a singular fascinating place. Going to Italy, like, there's a lot of fun things to talk about in Italy. So anyway, I spend a lot of time babbling about it like I'm doing now. And so I thought Wondercade would be a fun place, a fun missive to sort of talk about all the random circus 3 rings worth of fun that I like to crow about. And we
you're
came up
doing-
with the name myself. And so I own wondercade.com.
See,
And
you get the domain.
yeah, we got the domain, we got the tweet, and we got the Instagram. So it doesn't have like NPH_Wondercade or anything weird. It's just wondercade.com. And I can't recommend it enough for your people. We just did podcast issues
Yeah.
and stuff. In fact, would you be willing to come on or like
I would love to.
help? Because that would be like, we could do a woodworking 101 kind of issue, which would be that would be
Yeah,
fantastic. Because then in the Emporium, we could talk about 5 or 6 things that would be great to buy, a la the spray paint nozzle thing. That's the gun.
Yeah, yeah, the little trigger thing.
That's
yeah.
fantastic, by the way.
Oh, it's amazing how
Game
just
changer.
that motion of sending your fingers gripping them rather than pushing it down makes a huge difference.
Agreed.
I don't know.
So yeah, maybe you can.
How much time do you? I would love to. And how much time do you spend working on that newsletter? Because that's a weekly newsletter. That's a lot of work. As a guy who comes out with a monthly newsletter, and when it's like a week before it comes out, and I'm always like, oh my God, I've got to write the whole thing up. And
we have a team of three. We have a team of 3 or 4 people that are doing it all the time. I usually get do a big edit over the weekend on Friday, and then on Monday we're doing sort of final edits, and then Tuesdays sort of clean up, and then it comes out on Wednesday and we lick our wounds and rinse and repeat. So yeah, it's a full-time gig. Hopefully we'll get enough. I want to get enough people that Wondercade feels like what it sounds. I want it to feel like the carnival has come to town, and in doing so, it doesn't have to be Neil-centric for everything, but it can be. In fact, we have someone that works at Wondercade headquarters that we've named the Bookhistorian, and it's sort of the historian of books. And this Bookhistorian that we've created, they do book recommendations, so that it doesn't have to. I don't want it to be inauthentic. I don't want to say this is my favorite. I just read these 5 books, and so should you, if I haven't actually read them. And so we have the Bookhistorian. They're making recommendations, and we'll probably have more characters within the carnival that do that kind of stuff, so I can pull back a little bit and not have it be so family and specific to me.
Yeah, I'm going to take a cue from some of that, because that's a really polished newsletter.
Thanks.
I want to bring some of that into my own newsletter, because I'm always looking for ideas. What else do I bring into it? And every month I'm trying to think of, well, what's the latest, seasonal thing that I could talk about or something. But it's like such low hanging fruit. I want to get deeper into the.
And I always
into woodworking.
I'm very tactile, and I love textural things. And when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, and I was turning in a history report, and I knew that I hadn't done a lot of research, I figured, wait, if I can write the report, and then if I can rip the edges of the page, and then if I can spray water on it and put it in the oven for a few minutes, then it'll look like a pirate map. And then I don't have to have done a lot of research, because the teacher will be wildly impressed by the fact that they found this found artifact of a thing, and it works almost 100% of the time. And so I wanted Wondercade also to feel like modern, but also to feel like something that you would find in a drawer of an attic at a relative's house, So
you seem to stay real connected with your fans and your audience. I think more so than a lot of celebrities. Could just be my imagination, but I see you as almost bridging this gap between old media and new media. There seems to. I don't know if you're seeing as much of this anymore, of this just kind of like almost a cultural divide between these two forms of media, or not.
I do like to think that old things are new and still impressive. I still like a good old typewriter. I still like a good ink stamp. It just looks.
It's satisfying
cool.
too.
It's satisfying.
Yeah.
And a cork board for me is better than a dry erase board. But I don't know. As far as fan base go, dude, I've been doing this a long time, and I guess if I'm hungry to do anything, it's to be aware of multiple demographics and to be able to satisfy them, not for taking over the globe or anything, or for ego base, but just as you said in my introduction, there are people who come up and say that they watch the Smurfs all the time, and that their kids love it and know me from that. And there's other people that want to buy me a shot because I was Barney on How I Met Your Mother. And then there's other people that say that they saw Hedwig on The Angry Inch on Broadway, and it changed their perspective about, trans rights and stuff. And then there's other people that still call me Doogie. And so I've done a whole lot and have like weird different fans from different demographics, I guess. So I don't want to be singular.
I'll put in a plug for Count Olaf.
Count Olaf. I mean, come on. So that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'd forgotten it.
I just love Series of Unfortunate
Oh, thanks,
Events.
man. One of the reasons I did that is because I had never done the prosthetic work. Like
Oh yeah.
I've done some singular How I Met Your Mother episodes where I had old man Barney look and stuff, but I had never done it in earnest, and I was always fascinated by that. I was a big, still am a big special effects makeup fan. Rick Baker was the man.
Oh, hey, do you know Tom
Of
Savini?
course, I know Tom Savini.
That's he designed this mask. That's the Jason mask there. So he made those, and you could order them from him and his crew. Make those
Nice,
and send
really?
them out. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fantastic.
I'm a huge fan of those kind of old school makeup.
Oh, me too. Loved it.
Practical effects.
And
It's amazing.
so when Series of Unfortunate Event came along, they said, Barry Sonnenfeld said, you're going to be in prosthetic makeup every single day, which would probably be an hour and a half in the morning, if not longer, to get ready. And I loved it. I really did. I didn't zone out because I felt like applying adhesive to skin and making sure there's no bubbles and making sure that these tiny little, there were 5 or 6 pieces that attached to my face and had to stay on all day. Like it needed to become a part of my body. And then once it was on my face, which took a while, like airbrushing your face every day and holding your breath while they're spraying all these things on was its own weird technical feat. But then making a surprise face with a big piece of with all these pieces of latex on your face is oddly challenging because I would give a subtle surprise face wouldn't read. I had to be very like over the top Grand Guignol kind of expressive in order to accomplish regular expressions. I had to be real grumpy face in order to look grumpy. And so that was an interesting sort of technical feat of how to move my actual face underneath layers of latex was crazy. I loved it. It was really fun to be a part of, but felt very, very, it felt like a skill. It felt like artisans were working on my face, and I got to sort of be a part of watching them work. And it was one of my favorite parts of that project.
Did you feel like that character could just come alive more with that makeup on, that you were just like became this person?
Olaf was so nasty that it certainly was helpful if I was tired or if I was cranky. I could certainly own that as opposed to
Yeah.
like channel it and try and like pretend like it didn't exist. So because I'm also playing happy nice guy, I just got to be an ass the whole time. And so yeah, any hangry moments or any
Yeah.
actual
I'll
upset I
bet.
had, it was very easy to manifest itself in the character for sure.
Hey, you said you were working out before we started this podcast. How do you stay so ripped? You're a pretty ripped guy for 48.
I'm doing all right.
How often, what's your workout routine look like? Is it
I
like
probably
every,
work out 6 out of 7 days. I do like strength training and like hit training
yeah.
and stuff. I bought a thing called a tonal, Tonal, that I can't
Hmm.
recommend enough. It's sort of like the mirror, except it mounts to the wall and it has 2 arms that are attached to it, and the arms can like a
Oh yeah, I've seen
proper
those. Yeah.
gym piece of gym equipment turn into all kinds of things.
Right.
And it is authentically, I'm not an ambassador for it, genius. Like it's electromagnets. It is a great workout in every possible way. So I usually do that, and then every other day do some cardio, like on the elliptical for half an hour. I just want to stay lean. I don't
Yeah.
want man boobs. I want to get more flexible as I get older. I want to be able
Yeah.
to like squat down and stand up when I'm older and keep my
So
posture
they
good.
just, I just saw this challenge. They call it the old man test. Okay, so if you can, you put a pair of, have you seen this? You put a pair of socks, pair of shoes on the floor, and then with standing on one leg, you have to bend over, pick up one sock, put it on, bend over again, pick up the shoe, put it on, tie it, then set the foot down
Great.
and do the same on the other. I passed flying
I'll do
colors.
it on the daily. I love this. I love this challenge. My
See?
goals right now, and I've had them for about 6 years, maybe 15, is to juggle 5 things. I have juggled 3, no
Oh,
problem. Juggle 4, no problem. Like you'd think I was in the circus. Can't juggle 5 to save my life. I've tried. I can't. For some reason, it's a higher pattern. I can't do it. So I'm working on that. And more importantly, is the slow press handstand. I'm not talking the
oh,
kick up
wow.
handstand where you're in the grass or on the
Yeah.
beach and you kick forward and then kick your legs up. I'm talking that Cirque du Soleil lean body, slowly bend over, plant your hands on the ground, and then curl your body up into a handstand. That's the dream. That's the combination of flexibility, core strength, regular strength, and just agility that I think one should aspire to. And I am going to get there.
Yeah. See, I want to work. I'm trying to do a kip up. You know, a kip
Yeah.
up. See, like you see wrestlers that do.
Shaka kip up. That always hurts my neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Can you do that? You just jump up and land on your feet.
Yeah, I think so.
That's.
I can try.
I'm working on that
You
one.
working on your kip up?
I'm working
That's
on
impressive. I'm also doing a Netflix show called Uncoupled that comes out at the end of July, and I'm it's sort of a gay Sex in the City. I'm in a long-term relationship, and then my partner of 18 years breaks up with me on his 50th birthday, and I'm in the dating world at mid to late 40s in a grinder kind of world, and I've never really done that before. So we filmed 8 episodes of that, and I was in every state of undress imaginable. Like, it's not for children, and you see like lots of nudity on my end, and so that has kept me needing to exercise on the daily for no other reason than
You
vanity.
got to stay ripped for that.
Not ripped. I just want to
That's
be. I want to be lean. I just don't want to be saggy. Nothing wrong with saggy, but I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like those are life goals,
I'm with
and
you.
I'm only halfway through life.
I'm
You know.
with you. Yeah. Try rock climbing. You
I
know?
love rock climbing. I moved back
do?
to New
Yeah.
Mexico after I was living in LA for a long time. Post Doogie, I was 19, 20, 21, not getting jobs in movies because I was a TV guy and needed to sort of have chapters passed before I would get hired again. And so I was just like smoking a lot of weed and being bitter and like 21 years old, and it just didn't feel like an effective way to exist. So I moved back to New Mexico because the only jobs I was getting, I was being offered TV movies where I play someone who hacks up his parents with a wood maul. I did a couple of those, and Christmas movies with Debbie Reynolds. Did one of those too. And so, but otherwise, auditioning, I wouldn't get any gigs. And so I just thought, well, if I'm going to be offered jobs, I could live anywhere. So I went back to a town called Placitas between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. And I have some rock climbing friends. And I spent probably 2 years just hanging out in the desert,
Oh,
climbing
nice.
rocks and belaying. And
Nice.
it's such a beautiful,
Yeah.
that's such a beautiful skill. Where do you go in Cali?
I do indoor rock climbing. I haven't done I'm going to do the outdoor rock climbing soon.
So you go to a gym?
But I've been doing the indoors. I just got into it. Yeah, the indoor rock climbing gym. I mean, I love it. We do like all the different routes and the belaying, and
I find that my forearm
it's a
strength
it's a
gives
it's a
out
full body
so
workout.
fast.
The forearms,
Woof.
yeah, and my fingers. I'm starting to feel like joint problems. Like there's this thing I was looking it up. I was googling like, why does my finger hurt so bad? And it's like, well, it's this pulley tendon in your fingers, and that there's like 4 stages of like screwed it up. And I think I'm on stage 1, so I'm okay. But like stage 4, they got to like do surgery on. I'm like, shit, I don't want that. And so but at that stage, it's like when you're climbing, you'll actually hear it pop. And I'm like, oh, that I don't want that to happen. So I'm trying to like work on my form. But it's a full body workout. You know,
Very
it's
impressive.
A lot more than you think.
And mental.
I enjoy it.
I like the mental
It
workouts
is.
as well.
Yeah.
Because you can work hard on something and just realize if I just shift my weight to one side,
Right.
I'd get just what I need. And that's mental as well. That's a fun
Yeah.
puzzle. Good for you.
Hey, before we go, I wanted to real quickly ask you, Disneyland or Disney World?
Disney World, no question. I mean, I grew
Really?
up in New Mexico, and so we would go to Disneyland every year. My parents would claim my brother and I were sick and take us out off peak so that we wouldn't have to wait in tons of lines. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm, even SeaWorld, which is verboten at the moment, but we would go do all of that stuff. So I love it. That said, Disney World, it's spacious. I mean, that was not their little box, right? That was their
No.
big next level box. And
Yeah,
so
they got the big Star Wars hotel there now. You seen that
can't
thing?
wait. Can't wait. I'm sort of learning
amazing.
everything about it without spoiling
It's like
everything.
it's totally immersive. It's like you're in a spaceship the whole time
For 3 days.
It's incredible.
No, I know. I'm friends with Scott Trowbridge, who's the lead Imagineer designer on that. So he's been telling me about this since they've been like creating it. I got to go walk around Galaxy's Edge
Oh
and
man.
ride the rides early on. I'm a big Disney theme park but Disney Orlando Epcot is just magical, and the Animal Kingdom is fantastic. I get to go every year and tell the story of Jesus's birth at thrice nightly at the candlelight processional up at the American part of Epcot, and I've been doing that for 11 or 12 years. I'm going to do it again this year for 4 nights, mid-December, and it's so great. I get to go and play with the family for half a day, and then the second half of the day, I get to go and stand in front of people who queue up for hours, Steve, to sit in communion in Epcot Center and listen to me
Wow.
talk about my husband and my children, and then tell the story of baby Jesus. And it all is happy in the world. It's a really kind of
Somehow
great
that
moment.
works.
Of course it does. It's
It's the
Disney, man.
magic
It
of
always works.
it's the magic of Disney and Epcot. I mean, that Epcot is worth the admission alone. It's just Epcot. I think that's the best theme park down there.
For education purposes, yes. But the Animal Kingdom,
But it's just fun too. There's just so many cool. Oh yeah, Animal Kingdom too is a blast. It's amazing.
they're all dope.
But I don't know. We're going out to Disneyland this summer. It's been a couple of years, obviously,
Yep.
and I kind of want to just get because we haven't traveled anywhere. And I'm like, hey, we want to go down to Disneyland and see how it's getting along. And
You can go to Six Flags too now, right?
Yeah, you mean Magic Mountain
Yeah,
down there?
Magic Mountain. That's not far.
Yeah, yeah.
We
Yeah,
have
we
our
like that.
11-year-olds
We hit them all.
are into the thrill rides now. So that we just went to Busch Gardens.
Well, Magic Mountain, there's no better place than Magic Mountain for coasters. Wow.
Busch Gardens was pretty great.
It's,
We were just there.
oh, yeah, Busch Gardens. Yeah, my son and I were members of the American Coaster Enthusiasts, so we were trying to go around riding coasters all over the place and getting coaster credits.
And so does that fall in line with you? Like, because I feel like the theme park design, the roller coaster creation and design, the architecture of all of that is really in the same conversation as building.
Oh, absolutely.
Woodworking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I love everything about it. I love seeing how they're built. I love seeing the construction, especially look at wood roller coasters. You know, a lot of people see those and they think, oh, that's old fashioned. No, they're still making lots of new wooden roller coasters, and but it's a totally different beast because it has to move and the wood gives and contracts, and it's fascinating.
That's
Yeah,
super fun.
I love it.
I love building stuff that bring people joy. I'm less interested
Yeah.
in building a coffee table. I don't think
See?
it's like I'd much rather build a box with a mirror in it.
See, there you go. You got to start with that box, and I expect to see pictures on Instagram after you.
Hey,
You got to start posting those pictures of whatever you do. You build this shop, just post them up on Instagram.
I'll give you mad credit, especially when I'm mad.
Okay. That sounds great. Well, Neil, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join me on the Woodworking Talk Show. This was really, really a lot of fun.
Hey, for me, it's
Be sure to check out Neil's newsletter over at wondercade.com, especially since he has, of course, the domain on all platforms.
Yeah, I do.
Wondercade.com. Yeah, it's a cool newsletter.
Thanks, buddy.
Really cool. All right, thanks again. And thanks for listening to this episode. I'll see you guys next time.
Peace.